So I just want to say a few words to welcome Yedid Nafshi Hagon Rav Efrati. Two things. Moran Rav Yosef had many Talmidim. But first and foremost of Rav Yosef's Talmidim is Rav Efrati. I visited the Rav many times, and his so many Rabbanim today claim to be Talmidim of Rav Yosef, and many are. But his most closest Talmid was Rav Efrati. Besides being a doile v'mashke metoras rabbi, Rav Efrati in his own right is one of the choshevste Rabbanim in Yerushalayim and in Eretz Yisrael, a major posik in his own merit, and not only as a Talmid of Rav Efrat, of Rav Yosef, Zecher Tzadik Levrocha. And I'm happy to share this. It's not a podium, but I'm happy to share with Rav Efrati, and thank you for being with us today. This is a very choshev group of Rabbanim that represent many keheles. And I said in the morning, we have about 70, 80 Rabbanim that came to be with us, but they represent thousands upon thousands of Yidden throughout North America. So it's a kavod for us all to have Rav Efrati with us. מקצה שבוחר בפניו, אבל אתה לא מבין, אז יכולתי להגיד...
הבעיה שלו שנורי אני תופס מהר. אפילו ברשות מורנו הרב וייס, לא התייחס למה שהרב אמר, רק דיברו על שפה אחרת, אז ידוע שהחופץ חיים הקודש היה בוורשה אצל ראש הממשלה ברטל בגזירס שהיו עוד לפני הימח שימויניקס, לפני מלחמת העולם. והוא דיבר הרי באידיש, והרי שרוף, רב אהרון לוין, רצה לתרגם. והגוי אמר, לא צריך לתרגם, כי כשמדברים מהלב, אז מבינים בכל language, גם בשפה אחרת. רב אהרון לייב היה שומע את הסיפור הזה, רב אהרון לייב שטיימן היה מאוד מגיב נגד. מה כל כך הפריע לו? אני חושב שהפריע לו כי הוא אמר, גוי לא מבין דברים שיהודי יוציא מהלב. אבל הוא אמר, למה הגוי הזה הבין? ברטל הזה היה מהפלקסדייטשה. בפוילין היה ליד אזור דנציג, וכל המקומות האלה היה אנשים שמקורם בארץ המולק, בגרמניה. אז לכן הוא הבין. ואני אומר, מורנו הרב, זה שיש לו עין טויבה, והוא אומר ככה, ולדאבון ליבי, זה יוצא מהלב שלו, אז אני מבין, אני רק מבקש שכל דבר שהרב אומר תקבלו. מה שהוא אמר לגבי מישהו שיושב לידו, לא לקבל.
אנחנו לא נערב.
Okay, so we'll open it up if anyone has particular questions. Please feel free to ask questions that are really relevant to everyone. What? Yeah, let's begin with the question that we wanted to speak about before, about the milk.
אוקיי, אז השאלה היא לגבי חלב חדש שעכשיו מציף את השוק.
I can first describe what...
Yeah, okay, so Minchas Osher Chelik Dalet, from Siman Ayin Dalet to Ayin Tet, there are 6 tshuvas regarding cultured meat. Don't look for it because it's not in print yet. So, but you could make a note. I hope in a month or so, the 4 volumes will be printed together, and Chelik Dalet, there are 6 tshuvas dealing with cultured meat. And I insisted from day number 1, it's fleshig, and it needs to be produced from cells of a kosher shechted animal. So the fundamental question was, they take cells, microscopic cells, and with modern technology, cause them to multiply at an unbelievable pace that they don't do in nature. And the plan was to produce meat. And fundamentally, what I wrote in my tshuvas is, meat is meat. So there's a saying, it's not a Jewish saying, but if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. So this is meat being examined in a laboratory. It has the components of meat. It comes from meat cells and it's meat. And primarily I quoted two Gemaras. Menachas samachtes, chitin shiyordu ba'ovi, mahim lemenochos, machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi says they were soaked up to the clouds by evaporation. And Tosfos says, no, we know what we know today about science. No object could be soaked up, only water turns into gas, gas turns into water. Tosfos says, miracle. Chitin, grain came tumbling out of the skies, miracle. And the question in the Gemara is it memoish v'seichem or not? But nobody questions, is it grain or not? Grain is grain, doesn't matter where it comes from and how it comes to be. And in Sanhedrin Tes, story of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzodek, who was taking a walk and he was attacked by lions, and part of an animal came flying out of the skies, and the lions devoured the animals, and they let him alone. What does a Talmud Chacham do when such an event happens? Everything has to do with the halacha. He takes the leftovers, that the lions left over, he brings it to the Beis Medrash, and he asks, is this kosher or treif? And they said, Ein dover tameh yored min hashamayim. So we asked, oh really? And if a donkey falls out of the heavens, would that be kosher? So no one questioned, is it meat or not? It didn't come from an animal. Fell out of the sky. Meat is meat. Doesn't matter where it originates. The Chazon Ish seems to write differently. And he says, if we could create meat, it wouldn't be fleshig. It must come from an animal. But my psak was, this is fleshig, and it needs to come from a kosher animal achar shchita. In the later tshuvos, it became obvious that they would not be successful in producing meat. There's so many technological, scientific promises which not always do materialize. So the end product is 80% vegetable, and that is called the scaffold, and less than 20% actually is a product that is like meat. But still I said, it's not bottle b'shishim, it's fleshig, and it must be kosher. Milk is different, so let me explain. Milk is 87% water, 3% fat, 5% lactose, which is natural sugar, 4% or somewhat similar protein. 20% of the protein is whey, and the other 80% is casein or other components. So this company, Real Milk, found a way to produce whey without using any milk product, no cells from an animal. They developed a yeast which helps them produce whey. Whey, by nature, is 0.7% of milk. It's a very minor component. And then another company, a dairy company, buys their whey, which is a protein, adds on water. Milk has natural water. They add on water. Coconut oil instead of fat. Sugar instead of lactose, because lactose is a form of sugar, and they produce a product which looks like milk, tastes like milk, doesn't walk like milk because milk doesn't walk. And I think it is not milk because it has no component that comes from milk. Why would this be different than my approach to meat? Primarily because this meat comes from meat cells. It originates in the meat of an animal, even though they're microscopic. But we cause them to multiply, therefore it's meat. Even if this milk would be totally milk, I still would say there's a difference between milk and wheat, and that's a Gemara and Chol and Kuf Yud Gimel Omid Beis. Lo yitzavah shegdi b'chalev imo. And we learn 4 halachas from chalev imo. Chol of Tameya, there is no isur of basar b'chalav. Chol of shchuta, chol of zochar. So chol of zochar is a different type of milk. Chol of Tameya is a different type of milk. But chol of shchuta is the same milk. Rashi writes, Chulin Kuftes, Lav Cholov. It's not milk. What does Rashi mean it's not milk? It's milk. It wasn't milk. We never took it out of the animal's udder, but it's milk. The Rashman Toiris Abayis, Mishmeres Abayis, Bayis Daled, Shar Aleph. The Rashman writes, it's milk, Elishalo Yosef Satoira. And I don't think necessarily it's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. It's just different words. But we do see from here, not all milk is asur. Only what was milked from a cow's udder is asur, has a din of basar b'chalav. The same milk. If the animal was slaughtered, and we find the milk in the animal's udder, which wasn't milk, is not asur. Would this be any different than chol of shchuta? Chol of shchuta is also mid'Rabbanan. And this is a fundamental question in Darkei HaPsak. Could we expand the Surim D'Rabbanan? If they would have this milk in those days, probably the Chumam would asur, but they didn't. And in our approach to halacha, Masha loy asru, loy asru. Chol of shchuta is usa mid'Rabbanan. They didn't asur this form of milk. So I don't think there would be an issur D'Rabbanan. But beyond that, because there is no component in this product that comes from milk or comes from an animal's body, I do not think it's melachik. So the only question we have is marasayin. And marasayin is like kaskasim of a dog. If you have the bottle on the table, and everybody realizes that this is an artificial product, it would not be melachik. That is my opinion regarding this new milk. כבודו עסק בשאלה?
קצת הנקודה, אני רק שואל את הרב, אני לא חס שלום, לא אומר כלום. הנקודה תמיד במריסיים, וחלב שקדים, מכל מקום. מה יקרה אם אני עכשיו עושה פעולה, אני אכתוב על כל שקית של הדבר הזה, וכאלה אותיות גדולות, בעברית ובאנגלית ובטורקית. לכתוב, זה מיוצר מזה ומזה, ואין בזה בשר וחלב. זה פותר בעיה של מריסיים?
אם זה מונח על השולחן, אני חושב שכן.
כמו בחלב שקדים. אז אני צריך את הדבר הזה להתנות.
זה מה שאמרתי. אם זה מונח על השולחן, לא שונה משקדים וקסקסים.
אני מוכר את זה, כן? אני עכשיו הקמתי חברה, ואני מוכר את הדבר, והשאלה היא עכשיו, האם הדבר הזה, אנחנו אומרים עליו שיש לו דין של מריסיים, זה חלב שקדים, זה בעיה במראית עין.
אבל אנחנו מוכרים חלב שקדים. מוכרים חלב שקדים, זה אותו דבר.
כי אצלנו זה כבר ידוע, זה כמו השאלה על המרגרינה שהשתנתה. זה מתאים לנושא שמדברים פה, כן? על השינויים, לא חס ושלום בהלוכה, אלא בתהלוכות החיים.
So that is my opinion. It's not melachi. Number 2, where is Rav Shechter? So take the liberty to ask.
הוא הלך להביא שיהיה פה על השולחן, שזה לא יבוסר בכל אופן.
Can I jump on this question and bring a similar question to this?
Yes.
I have my notes in front of me, what the Rav spoke 4 years ago, Toshman days. And the Rav spoke about a technology around there called IgG, in vitro gametogenesis. And essentially what it means, to remind what the Rav spoke 4 years ago, is making sperm and egg cells out of skin, out of other cells in the body. Is that a good thing to do or not a good thing? And I'm quoting from what the Rav said then, some technology should be embraced and some should be rejected. That's what the Rav said. I want to ask a different question that's not Nagel Amaisa today, but might be in the next few months. Because some researchers are publishing about it. So every male, we hope, has sperm. If they don't have sperm, we can do a procedure called tesa, where we open up the testicle.
Microtesa or a tesa?
We hope to find sperm. Unfortunately, on 50% of men that are azoospermic, we don't find any sperm. Sometimes what we do find is germ cells, which the germ cells in and of itself can do nothing. The germ cells, the testicle produces them makes them into into sperm cells. There's a researcher now that says that he can take out germ cells from the testicle and make them into sperm cells. So technically, I don't need to explain for the Rav, but for the Rabbanim sitting here, what's the difference between a sperm cell and an egg cell and any other cell in the body? Any other cell in the body is a whole cell. A sperm cell and an egg cell are haploids, or half cells. Therefore, a sperm cell is able to connect to an egg and become a new cell and create new life, half the DNA from the mother, half from the father. The question now is, if in the lab we take a germ cell and make it into a sperm cell, is that considered a child of the father? Or, that new technology, in Safra Ma'ara, like Chalitza, in Mako Beveloi, and everything, in Yerusha and everything.
Yeah, so let me relate to your introduction, and I firmly stand behind what I said 4 years ago. Some technologies should be embraced and some should be rejected, especially technologies which will help couples have children. On the sheet I gave on Tzedakah, I commented that helping people with fertility is the closest thing to pikuach nefesh. We cannot define it as pikuach nefesh, koroiv lepikuach nefesh. Whatever we could do to help people have children should be done. Using cells to produce sperm or egg from any other part of the body, something that should be totally rejected, and I see this as a tragedy, because we will bring children to the world without a father, without a mother, and the same person will be father and mother. The woman would be father and mother. That is something that is horrific, and it's something that I was so angry at a Rav that came out encouraging this endeavor, and I think it should be totally rejected. On the other hand, taking germ out of a person's testicles and enhancing it to become sperm, to me it is clear that this sperm is his, and the child will be his child. There is no such a thing, al pi Torah, a child that doesn't have a father, or a child that doesn't have a mother. Some poskim going back many years argued in IVF that it's not his father, and I thought that argument was so ridiculous. Fatherhood and motherhood doesn't depend on an act. It depends on egg and sperm. And if we use his germ cells to develop sperm, that will be his sperm, and the child will be his child, and I would not reject this technology. This is something I would embrace.
Before we speak about patient autonomy, in terms of medical procedures that relate to people's decisions, one of the challenges, I face working in a hospital is often you'll have a geriatric patient. Often they have Alzheimer's dementia, and commonly they get a lot of pneumonia towards the end of their life. When they get a pneumonia, often one of the interventions that we can do is intubation, which often get them through the episode of pneumonia, but sometimes, especially in the older patients, it's very likely that they will remain on the ventilator for the rest of their life. So we can intubate them, we can cure the pneumonia, but by the end of this process, their lungs will be too adapted and will be unable to wean them off the ventilator. And therefore, they'll remain on a trach and a vent, including for many years. So The question is twofold. First of all, when it comes to patients that have Alzheimer's dementia, in a case like this, would we be mechuyev to intubate them? And if we are mechuyev and they find a DNI, how does that relate to the halachic approach of the family members and the doctors?
I would ask Rabbi Efrati to share his opinion, even though in all likelihood we will disagree on the answer, and that is totally legitimate. Where Rabbanim could disagree on many issues, and it does not affect our relationship at all. הבנתם מה שאמרתי עכשיו?
אבל אני רוצה להבין במדויק את השאלה.
אני אגיד את השאלה.
כי אני חושב שאני כמה פרטים השמעתי.
אני אגיד את השאלה, אבל הקדמתי שיכול להיות שאנחנו חלוקים בדעתנו, וזה
את הקטע הזה הבנתי.
בכל יום, את הקטע הזה אנחנו. השאלה מאוד מאוד מצויה אצל חולים מבוגרים. אז חולה מבוגר שמצבו הבריאותי מאוד רופף, יש לו דימנציה, הוא פיתח דלקת ריאות. כדי לרפא את הדלקת ריאות אנחנו צריכים לחבר אותו למערכות ההנשמה. קרוב לוודאי שאחרי שהוא יהיה פרק זמן על מכונת הנשמה, גם אם נצליח באנטיביוטיקה לרפא אבל לא נוכל להוריד אותו, והוא יישאר כל ימיו מחובר למערכות ההנשמה. האם אנחנו מחויבים בכל זאת לחבר אותו להנשמה? זו הייתה השאלה.
ברשות הרב, כל אחד יודע שהשאלות הללו היום, לדאבון לב, מצד אחד בגלל ההתקדמות הרפואית, ומצד שני גם בגלל ההשקפה שנמצאת, לא חס ושלום במקום הקדוש הזה, אבל ההשקפה שסך הכל אם אין לו חיים טובים ויעילים, האחריות שלנו להמשיך היא קטנה. אז השאלות האלה באות כסדר. אז אני רק ברשות הרב רוצה להגיד דבר אחד, אני יכול להגיד שככה שמעתי מהרב אלישיב, כשהתחילו השאלות של חולים סופניים, והייתה השאלה של איזה פעולות אני מחויב לבצע, ועיקר השאלה, מתי אני יכול לבוא ולהגיד לא חייבים. אז בשלב הראשון, מה שאני שמעתי מהרבא כמה וכמה פעמים, הרבא אמר ככה, תראה, הרי אנחנו לא יודעים מה זה חיים של דקה, של יהודי. כדי שלא מתחייב לבצע פעולה להארכת חיים, אז לכאורה צריך 3 דברים. סעיף א', שהפעולה הזאת כרוכה בייסורים, זאת אומרת, הפעולת הארכת החיים היא כרוכה בייסורים. 2, שיש לנו גילוי דעת מהחולה שהוא לא חפץ בזה. בשלב אחר, הבנתי, ואני מתכוון חס ושלום שאני לא טועה, שגם אם המשפחה מסביב מעריכה שזה כך, זה גם חשבון. אז זאת אומרת, 1, הנקודה כרוכה בייסורים, החולה איננו חפץ, ואנחנו יכולים להאריך חיים רק בחיי שור. וחיי שור, הוא אמר, זה לא כך יעזר. זאת אומרת, לא אם יבוא מישהו ויגיד, חיי שור, שאחייעזר יכול להיות שחיי שור זה גם כמה וכמה חודשים. זה אומר, אם הם באים ואומרים הרופאים, אשר בידם הנתונים, והם יגידו, זה לכמה שבועות, זה לא מעבר לזה. אז אנחנו יכולים לדון. מה שמורנו הרב מדבר, כאן יש לנו שאלה שהיא הייתה הרבה פעמים מגיעה מצד אחר. לא יודע אם סתום האוילם פה יודע. הרב הוא גם הרב של בית החולים, מעל בית החולים שערי צדק. עכשיו יש לי בבית החולים 2 מכונות, 4 מכונות. של לב ריאה. מתחילה השאלה, מי קודם בחיבור? יש פה מציאות, והשאלה היותר קשה, היה לי מכונה פנויה, חיברתי את החולה שעונה לקריטריון שהרב דיבר עליו, ועכשיו מגיע אליי חולה שני שיכול להיות שמכונת לב ריאה תחזיר אותו למציאות אחרת. אז אני חס שלום לא, הרב אומר שיכול להיות שדעותינו שונות. מה שאני יכול לומר ברבים זה מה ששמעתי מהרב לגבי העניין הזה של פעולות מסוימות לא לבצע כאשר יש א', ב' וג'. בשאר הדברים צריך סייעתא דשמיא ולמצוא רב גדול בתורה כמו הרב שליטה ושיקח אחריות על העניין.
יישר כוח. הרב זכה לשמש את גדול הדור, את הרב אלישיב. ההוראה שלי לא שונה בהרבה, אבל מה שאני אומר בדרך כלל, צריך לחבר להנשמה אם יש סיכוי להוריד מן ההנשמה. אבל בכל מצב שאנחנו מחברים אדם להנשמה, ואנחנו לפי דעת הרופאים, רופאים אחראים ומוסמכים, הוא יצטרך להישאר כך עד יום מותו, אנחנו לא צריכים להנשים. צריך להבין שההנשמה היא לא פעולה טבעית, והיא פעולה קשה. כשמנשמים אדם, מכניסים בלון להרחיב את דרכי הנשימה. זה כואב, ולכן צריך כמעט בכל המקרים גם לטשטש אותו, כדי שלא יסבול. זה בהחלט פעולה שגורמת לכאב. יש הרבה רמות של הנשמה. זה מתחיל עם קנולה באף, ממשיך לבייפד, ממשיך לטרייק שפותחים את הגרון, ולפעמים מספיק להכניס חמצן, אבל מכונת הנשמה מכניסים מתקן להרחיב את כלי הנשימה, ופעולה זו גורמת לכאב ולאי נוחות קיצונית, ולכן על פי רוב צריך גם להרדים או לפחות לטשטש. אני סבור שחייבים להנשים רק כשיש סיכוי שיוכלו להוריד מן ההנשמה. אבל להרדים אדם ולטשטש אותו כאשר ככה הוא יישאר עד יום מותו, לא מחויבים. צריך לדעת, הנשמה זה לא כמו מזון, וזה לא כמו חמצן. זה טכנולוגיה מודרנית, מה שאנחנו קוראים אמצעי הירואי, ולא חייבים לעשות את זה, אלא אם כן יש סיכוי להוריד מן ההנשמה. קרוב למה שאמר הרב אפרתי, אבל לאו דווקא עם התנאים של כמה זמן, בארץ ישראל, בניגוד לאמריקה ולכל העולם, נותנים משקל לרצון המשפחה. משפחה שרוצה להנשים, חייבים לפי חוק להנשים. באמריקה לא. באמריקה זה הסמכות של הרופאים, והם יעשו מה שהם רוצים נגד רצון המשפחה. בארץ ישראל חייבים לקבל את הסכמת המשפחה או את הסכמת החולה. אם החולה לא הביע דעתו, אז הסמכות עוברת למשפחה הקרובה. הסמכות של המשפחה להחליט, יש הבדלים בין רב מוישה רב שלמה זלמן. רב מוישה סבור שהמשפחה הקרובה צריכה להחליט, משום שאם החולה לא יכול להחליט, הסמכות עוברת עליהם. רב שלמה זלמן אומר, כל הסמכות שלהם זה רק אם הם אומרים שהם יודעים או יכולים לשער מה רצון החולה. אבל הסמכות הוא אך ורק של החולה, והמשפחה עומדת במקום החולה. מה שהרב אפרתי הזכיר על המחסור בחומות הנשמה, היום אין מחסור. אפילו בעידן הקורונה היו מספיק מכונות הנשמה. בארץ ישראל אין מחסור במכונות הנשמה, ולכן השאלה של קדימה היא שאלה תיאורטית, שבנסיבות נורמליות לא, בכל בית חולים וגם בשערי צדק יש מספיק מכונת לב ריאה זה לא הנשמה, זה מעבר להנשמה, זה בשלב כאשר גם הלב לא מתפקד. אז זה התשובה.
So just to take that question a little step further, let's say the case presents where it's not as definite that they'll have to remain on the bed, but the patient's not a terminal patient, like you said, but let's say it's advanced stage dementia, some other advanced stage disease where there's no quality of life.
People are troubled, but in halacha there is no source dealing with quality of life. So dementia is not really relevant. You know, what is relevant is pain and terminal illness. Dementia, I know families, you know, one of the most difficult experiences is to see a parent who is losing his mind. This is so horrific. It's easier to lose a parent than to see a parent losing his mind, his cognizance. But in halacha, a shaita has the same din as a pikeach, and there is no halachic source to express leniency because of dementia. אני אמרתי שבהלכה אין שום מקור שנותן משקל איכות חיים. הפרמטרים הם חיישו, הם ייסורים וכאבים.
A number of the Rabbanim who emailed about questions wrote similar variations of the same question, and that is obviously with the rise of anti-Semitism here in the United States, and many members of all of our kehilos thinking about Aliyah, what are the considerations that we should be discussing, and what does the Rav feel in general about where things are holding at the current time?
First of all, I'm a lover of Eretz Yisrael, and I think it's a huge chus to live in Eretz Yisrael on so many levels. It is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be. It is the Eretz Avoseinu that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. When people tell me they don't feel safe in America, they want to come to Eretz Yisrael, I say, you're a bit insane, because Shai, happy to see you. I hope your father is doing better. Because the most dangerous place in the world for a Jew to live is in Eretz Yisrael. Let's face it. We are losing people to terror. And in a relatively quiet year in Israel, we lose approximately 30 people to terror. That is more than the entire Jewish world in 5 years. There was a terrible attack in Australia, and I personally, intimately knew some of the people that were killed, and it's tragic. But security-wise, the most dangerous place in the world for a Jew to live is in Eretz Yisrael. Come to Eretz Yisrael because it's our land, it's our home. It's the land of Torah, it's the land of mitzvahs, it's the land of Kedusha, it is the land where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be, and not because you're afraid. So in America, they're going to shout at you, Free Palestine. We're losing people in Eretz Yisrael to terror, and it doesn't even make the headlines in the world. So Eretz Yisrael is where we should be, and people feel secure because it's home. You walk the streets proudly. Not in Chutz La'aretz, you don't feel the same. This is home. We're fighting around with knives in Eretz Yisrael, Charedim and Chilonim, but it's home. We're amongst our own. We're brothers. Brothers fight, but we're brothers. And ultimately, at the end of the day, everybody feels we're brothers. They all feel we are one, we're family. Families fight amongst themselves. Come to Eretz Yisrael because that is where you should be. The primary concern should be the chinuch of your children. If there is something that is more important than Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, it is the chinuch of your children. And some people will not find appropriate schools for their children based on the style of their family and how they want their children to grow. Because in Israel, you're either black or white. There's nothing in the middle. And in America, there are schools that are fitting to many shades in the middle. So if you're considering Aliyah, the most important thing for you to be concerned about is chinuch. Come to Israel, look for a school. Don't do Aliyah before you find proper schools for your children, because I know some people that did Aliyah with so much enthusiasm and so much ideals and ideology, and after a few years, broken-hearted, they moved back to America because they were losing their kids. So come to Eretz Yisrael is where we should all be. That is the home that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. Kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu Nesav el HaKonos Lois. We learn in Soite Daf Yudalet Kedei Lakayim Mitzvah Satluyas Baretz. And Rav Efrati is the #1 authority in the world regarding Mitzvah Satluyas Baretz. If you visit Eretz Yisrael, visit the Machon of Rav Efrati. There's amazing, material about Mitzvah Satluyas Baretz. But the primary concern would be see that you have proper chinuch for your children.
As a Rav, don't we have more responsibility to make sure that the American Jew also has a substantial aspect of Torah way of life? If we all walk away, who's going to be here to supervise and to assure that there is a next generation in America? Understandably, it's also very important. But we are Rabbanim. We have a certain responsibility. And I mean, that's why...
Rabbi Melman, you are the senior rabbi in this room, and it's obvious from your comment. We need to be concerned about the future of Jewry in America. If everybody is going to leave, not everybody is going to leave. And if the leaders of communities will all move to Israel, who's going to take care of our flock? That is an extremely important comment. So this question was presented, it was more about the individual. I think American Jewry has a great future, unlike what many others would say. And I think the comparison to America in 2026 to Germany in 1936 is not a relevant comparison. It's flawed. It's not the same for many reasons, but I don't want to speak about sociology and politics and why I think it's not the same situation. It's not the same situation. I think American Jewry has a great future. I hope that some agreements will be made. Anti-Semitism will subside. It'll never go away because it was here forever. It'll be here forever, but I hope it will subside. And yes, I think we need leaders like you in America to guide people. But on the individual basis, if a person would ask me, should I come to Eretz Yisrael? Well, if he's a leader of a community and it'll hurt the community, I might say, your duty is to teach Torah in America. But for the average Jew, Eretz Yisrael is where you should be. Please, we want you.
ברשות הרב, אני רק רוצה לספר דבר אחד שהיה לרב אלישיב בנושא הזה, לא בצורה שהשאלה הוגשה, כמה פעמים כשהוא ישב בבית דין הרבני של הרבנות. ומעשה שהיה, כך היה זוג שהיה ביניהם סכסוך. האם הטענה שניתנה בבית דין היא הייתה חלק מהסכסוך או היא ניתנה לצורך הסכסוך? אני לא יודע. אבל כמה וכמה פעמים הגיעה השאלה, הגיע הזוג לבית דין, וצד אחד אמר, אני רוצה לשבת בארץ ישראל. והצד השני אמר, אני לא רוצה. טען הצד הראשון, איך אומרים באנגלית? Excuse me, יש גמורה בקסובס, הכל מעלים לארץ ישראל, אם הוא לא רוצה, אז או שאני יכול להכריח אותו, ואז אני יכול לתת גט, או שהוא יצא בלא כתובה, כל היוצא מהעניין הזה של הסוגיה בסוף קסובס. והרב הזכיר עוד קודם את הנקודה של עצם יישוב ארץ ישראל, קדושת ארץ ישראל, דרש רבי סמלי וכי מפני אני טוב ומוישה להיכנס לארץ ישראל, כי לא יכול מפריה או צורך, כל הסיבות על ארץ ישראל. וישב הרב אלישיב כמה פעמים כתב את זה בספקות, כמה פעמים הוא כתב את זה בצורה בוטה. הוא אומר דבר אחד, יש לנו רב חיים כהן, בסוף כסובס. חיים כהן אומר, היום לא כדאי לעלות לארץ, אתה תעלה לארץ, לא תוכל לקיים מצוות תלויס באורץ. והמעריט בא בתשובה וכותב, הוא לא מבין מה רוצה רב חיים כהן, יש כל כך הרבה מצוות שאפשר לקיים, תלמיד טועה כסבוי, הדברים הידועים. אבל אומר הרב אלישיב, הוא הביא מערך פלאג'י. הרי המערך פלאג'י הוא איש פלאי, כן, בכמות שהוא הספיק לכתוב. הוא אומר, המערך פלאג'י אומר דבר פשוט. לא שאנחנו אומרים שרב חיים כהן טעה בעצם הדבר, אלא אנחנו אומרים, המציאות היא לא כזאת. אבל אם באים אנשים והם לא באים ממחשבה לחיות בארץ ולקיים חיי תורה, והוא עוד מדגיש מצוות תלויס באורץ, לפי המעריט שכל היישוב זה בגלל מי אמר שיש לבעל זכות לקוף את אשתו ויש לאישה זכות לקוף את בעלה, ולמעשה הדברים האלה כתובים גם בפרס השולחן. אז זאת אומרת, כתב הרב אלישיב פסק דין, פעמיים, זה מופיע כמה פעמים בפסקי דין. אומר ככה, אם אנשים באים לארץ והכוונה שלהם באמת לקיים מצוות, אתה יכול לקוף את אשתך, אשתך יכולה לקוף אותך, בתנאים כאלה ואחרים. אבל אם הנושא הזה לא קיים בין בני הזוג, אז כפייה ודאי שלא תוכל להיות. האם כדאי שתעלו או לא תעלו, זו עוד שאלה, מפני שמופיע בראשונים ובאחרונים, שלעלות לארץ זה ארץ אשר עיני השם אלוקיך בו, אז צריך יותר להיות זהיר במצוות. אבל על זה לא נדבר כעת. אבל אני אומר, הנקודה הייתה אחת בסיפור הזה שהוא לא נתן לקוף את הצד השני, בגלל העניין הזה. דבר שני, מה שהרב רמז על זה, היה הרבה פעמים שאלות, בזמנו זה היה בעיקר מקהילות בצרפת, שהם כתוצאה מהאנטישמיות ומהריבוי מהגרים צפון אפריקאים ואחרים לצרפת לפני 10, 15 ו-20 שנה, וקהילות שלמות רצו לעלות, והתברר שבחלק גדול מהמקרים הם הגיעו לארץ, ובארץ, בחוץ לארץ, הייתה את המסגרת. אם יהודי, יהודי, אם לא יהודי, אז מה המסגרת? אם יהודי, יהודי, זה חינוך, כמו שהרב הזכיר. אבל אם באו לארץ, זה התקלקל. הוא סבר שבחי גבנה, זה לא עצה הוגנת להגיד להם לבוא.
היום הקהילה הצרפתית בארץ מתחזקת, אבל הרבה איבדו את הילדים שלהם, וזה כמו שאמרנו.
זה מה שהרב הזכיר קודם.
On the note of Eretz Yisrael, so with the prevalence of people, Hutzlars buying land in Israel, children making aliyah, grandchildren making aliyah, parents or grandparents making aliyah, has anything changed in terms of the psak not changed, but are there any sort of situations that can mitigate the psak on Yom Sheni in general, where there are some people who will just ask certain Rabbanim, just say, oh yeah, I'll do one day. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying you have a family now that the kids are keeping, they live in Eretz Yisrael, they're keeping one day, the grandparents come, they're all together, and now all of a sudden the grandparents are going to have a second Seder. Is there like a zilzul yontif there in terms of...
So let me say this. Halacha is halacha, and halacha reigns supreme. And this tendency of being mezalzel and Yom Tov Sheni is something that I totally reject. If you're a chutznik, you're visiting Eretz Yisrael, you need to keep 2 days. Your kids and grandkids live in Eretz Yisrael, they keep 1 day. You need to keep 2 days, even though it might be somewhat uncomfortable. I do have a psak, which is, I know it's totally new, but I am convinced, and that's the way I paskin lemaisa, because I think sometimes there's no other way, or you need to be machadish halacha in a changing world. So for generations, a person lived either here or there. In our day and age, with advanced transportation, communications, who says a person can't live in two places? How do we define where a person lives? Reb Shlomo Zalman Paskind, if you're Sholosh Agorim in Eretz Yisrael, you hold one day, and I never understood, why does it depend where I am on Yom Tov? Why does it depend where I am on Yom Tov? So my psak is, if you have a home in Eretz Yisrael, and you spend approximately at least 2 months in Eretz Yisrael, more than an average tourist or visitor. A person comes as a visitor, as a tourist, he stays a week, 10 days, 2 weeks. It doesn't need to be Ritzufin. Not like Cheskes Gimel Shonim. But if you spend 2 months a year in Israel, you don't have kids in elementary school. If you have kids in school, that's where you live. You don't have an office job in which you need to punch a card and you need to be on the premises. You're a businessman, you conduct your business from out of your pocket. Your kids have grown. When you're in Eretz Yisrael, you're Israeli, you hold 1 day, in Chutz La'aretz you hold 2 days. Do I have a source? Tshuvas Maharit Tzahalo. He deals with a person that had 2 homes, one in Turkey, one in Israel. He had 2 wives, one in Turkey, one in Israel. And he spent a few months a year with his Turkish wife in Turkey and his Israeli wife in Israel, and he paskins, when you're in Turkey, you're a Turk, and when you're in Israel, you're an Israeli. And I say, if a person never has only 1 wife, why would he be different? But as the wife comes along with him, he's here or he's there, should be the same. So the criteria I demand have no source in halacha. But those are the sensible criteria that they define where a person lives. He lives where his parnasa is, he lives where his children go to school, he lives where he has a home. So under these 4 criteria I paskin. When you're in Israel, you hold 1 day because you're Israeli, you live here. When you're Chutz La'aretz, you hold 2 days because you live there. And when you're Chutz La'aretz, it's not a din of an Israeli in Chutz La'aretz, and when Eretz Yisrael, it's not a din of a Chutznik in Israel. When you're here, you're Israeli. When you're there, you're a Chutznik, and that is my psak. But the zilzal in Yom Tov Sheni is not acceptable. Yom Tov Sheni is a din d'Rabbanan, and it's binding.
Weiss wrote this up in Yeshurun, I think I saw this. Is there any location where it's...
I think it's in my chuvas. I think so. I'm not sure.
What about Americans keeping the second day, like having the minyan, where it's public? It seems in Perek for Nagu, it's supposed to be a little bit subtle when you're keeping your own minyan in a different place. So, like having a minyan or hakafos, where it's very clear that you're not keeping the minyan halacha. Do you think it's appropriate to have that kind of minyan, or just davening in Israel?
You should not have the minyan in open space in the park. But it's inevitable,
What about the opposite? The Israeli that's in Chutz La'aretz, they're living in Israel.
Oh yeah, l'chumra. An Israeli that is in Chutz La'aretz and Datei Lachzer is Israeli, so he keeps 2 days l'chumra. He puts on tefillin b'tzina.
And what about like the brachos at the second seder? Like, l'chumra means what? So like you have a second seder, an Israeli has a second seder in America, and they make al-kiyos matzah.
Let's leave those shilas to another opportunity.
When couples choosing between birth control, so sometimes there's a percentage, they're presented with options that don't lead for 100% success. And the question is, a young couple that wasn't Mekayim Puruvu, is it tenable that they could have a kavanah to Mekayim Mitzvah Puruvu while simultaneously being osig and being monea, having children? In which case, is there a psychological effect on the parents towards their kiyam ha-mitzvah, their relationship to the kiyam ha-mitzvah, when there may be, so to speak, split pregnancies that slip through?
I think it would be some kind of a strange contradiction, doing whatever you can to prevent pregnancy and being at the same time machaven to be makayim priya revia. Priya revia doesn't necessitate kavona. The concept of mitzvah sichas kavona is only relevant to mitzvahs that are pure avodas ukel, and not mitzvahs that are supposed to bring a result. But you definitely should have proper kavona. So you could have kavona that if there's going to be something wrong is going to happen and we're going to become pregnant, we really want to be makayim priya revia. And then they won't come to me asking for a heter to terminate the pregnancy. And I am so angry at this phenomena. It happens almost every week. A couple comes to me that it's an unwanted pregnancy. Could we terminate the pregnancy? And he asks, why are you pregnant? Well, we used the patch. I didn't know. If she shouldn't become pregnant, she shouldn't become pregnant. And don't come later after you're acting totally in a reckless manner and expect to get a heter for terminating a pregnancy. So you should always bear in mind the Shem Kedusha and the Shem Mitzvah, but if need be and you have a heter, you could prevent pregnancy even before you were Mekayim Priya Revia.
Is it tenable to time the mitzvah? The Ma'isa, with kavana, without kavana? That the Rav is saying you don't need to.
Yeah. If you have a ben v'bas, even you didn't have kavana, of course you're Mekayim the mitzvah.
But you get schar for that mitzvah, or you're pater?
No, you get schar.
So, thank you. There's been a lot of discussion in America, in different communities in America, about AI, artificial intelligence, which on one hand has the opportunity to help Rabbanim get great titles for shiurim, and help get stories, and help get all kinds of ideas. On the other hand, it has tremendous pitfalls in terms of psak that AI could generate, which is totally incorrect, and sources that don't exist, and even worse, AI also has the potential to provide access for children of, even if with filtered internet, that children could access very terrible things using AI. And I'm wondering if the Rav has a perspective of how to deal with something that has a potential for danger, but has great potential for positive use. Should we embrace it? Should we not embrace it? Or do we have to find some happy medium?
These are two questions. Generally AI, and in the realm of halacha. And I think the risks greatly outweigh the benefit. In some areas, maybe not, but a doctor recently asked me, I have a patient, based on my 35 years of experience, I would take a certain course of treatment. AI says differently, and I'm convinced he knows better. What am I supposed to do? My experience would suggest A, not AI, A. But AI suggests B. And I'm almost sure that he knows better. What am I supposed to do? My answer was, take seriously what AI suggests. Think it over. He's not stupid. But if your conclusion is differently, you need to follow your training, your responsibility, and your experience. AI has the potential to destroy the world. It could be helpful in many areas. I just heard a story about A-time this morning, and I hope it's correct, that a couple that didn't have children for many, many years, and so many specialists tried to help, and AI suggested a certain course of action, and this couple had a baby after 24 years. Is that correct? So, in many areas, AI could be extremely helpful, but there are also immense risks. In halacha, it is a great danger, but let me share with you a general perspective. Every time there's a breakthrough in dissemination of knowledge, it always causes a threat. In 1440, Gutenberg produced the first printing press. Historically, I'm not a researcher, but I do know a bit about things. the Christians, the Catholic Church was furious. I think one of the people involved in inventing the printing press was executed by the Christian Church. They were furious and they were afraid of the common man being able to read Scripture. They were afraid that the authority is slipping out of the church leaders, and they were furious. The Jewish world embraced the printing press. And most of the Sforim, first of the printing press, were Jewish Sforim. So the Jews embraced the dissemination of knowledge. Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. And the Catholic Church was furious. Fast forward 500 years, or even more. I remember, I think I was a bocher at the time, and Machon Yerushalayim printed היוםהשחור Talmud. Does anybody know those big green sperm? They're still around. And they came to ask Moran Rav Shach for Askoma, and he was angry. And he said, it'll diminish Omar HaTorah, Yegiyas HaTorah, you have everything before you. Rav Hutner wrote a letter, and he said, wasting your time looking for things is not Yegiyas HaTorah. Omar HaTorah is your mind. Omar HaTorah is sitting hours and learning, opening Sforim and looking for stuff. That's not Omar HaTorah. And he gave a warm askoma, and he said, this is great. You know, you're going to have everything open before you. So those are two different attitudes of two Gedolim. Fast forward. Today we have 1,000 היוםהשחור Talmuds in every area in halacha, and you know, the first to come up with this idea of text on the top and footnotes on the bottom was Rav Zevin in the Encyclopedia Talmudit in the first volumes, and then Rav Noivitz Shmiras Shabbos Kachos, and then we have 1,000,000 books of this nature. Then Google came along, and I am very disturbed. Because today, you know, Bikiyas is no longer for people like me. I mean, I was considered once a Baki. Today, every younger man of 5 minutes has more Bikiyas than any sugi that I would ever remember.
Lo b'Shabbos.
Lo b'Shabbos, can. So, and people, young people, came to ask for a skomis. 25-year man writes a sefer, deals with mamzeris and gittin. I talked to the guy, he never learned Evanes, he doesn't know what I'm talking about. And he writes shuvas. I always was so happy to give a skumas for Yingalite. Today I'm very reluctant. I'm very reluctant. The guy doesn't seem to know anything when you talk to him. Writes shuvas. Evanes, Cheshemish, were the most complicated sugyas, and that's before AI. That's Google. Or היוםהשחור Talmud. Not only sources, but you get 50 tshuvas that obscure Rabbanim wrote, and all you need to do is, you know, change the words a bit. So we are in a changing world even before AI. AI magnifies and multiplies this problem because he gives halachic ruling, and it's going to become worse. And it's here, it's not going away. And we can't ignore it. So doctors use AI and Rabbanim use AI. The difference is doctors wouldn't be ashamed to say I'm using AI, but Rabbanim would. No Rav would say, I took this psak from AI. The doctor would, in the presence of a patient, he would consult AI and he would think about it and he would decide. So it is a big problem. There's not much we can do about it. It's here. So ultimately, what will differentiate between a real posek and a Talmud Chacham and AI is being able to assess the details of a case and being able to decide koiche de hetere, as I described at the beginning of my shir, but the boundaries are becoming very confused and very fuzzy. So I don't have any solutions, but it's a real problem. AI in the halachic endeavor is a real problem. Because it's totally unreliable. And how could it be reliable? It's not a Rav. There is no siyata d'shmaya. He has no heart. So recently a person was in my presence. He asked AI, is the Bosh Weiss the God Lador? I was in tremendous tension waiting for the answer. And AI answered, so smart, he says, I'm not human. I don't have opinions. The God Lador is subjective. Don't ask me such type of questions. It's an opinion. I'm not human. I have no opinions. I could tell you he's very well respected. He's considered to be a big Talmid Chacham, loved by every, and many more compliments that I'm embarrassed to say in public. But he said, don't ask me for opinions. He's not human. He has no heart. He has no siyata d'shmaya. He can't give psak. And sometimes his psakim will be awful. So it's a real problem. And we need to develop some mechanism to really check, where does this psak come from? Does it come from a reliable Talmid Chacham who is a Yerei Shemayim and is Yata D'Shmaya, or is it just artificial intelligence?
I just want to thank the Weiss and the Efrati for giving up their time to answer these questions. Obviously, many more questions. So next year, Mr. Shem, when the email goes out, we will have an opportunity to develop it further. We want to thank the Rabbanim for dedicating their time to be with us, and thank all the Rabbanim for coming. Some of you came from very far distances, and it really makes this kinnis a tremendous gathering that it is, by everyone participating. Everyone should just have a good day.
And thank you, and I thank Rav Shai for initiating this, and Rav Exelrad and all the local Rabbanim for hosting us. And b'siyata d'shmaya, moida la'ovet, tzoyek al-osed, we should have many more opportunities. And thank you for Yedid Nafshi Agona Rav Efrati for gracing this session.
Just give a few moments, and then we're going to have the presentation. Rabbi Bergman will be here. We'll keep it in this room.
The truth is, we need Rabbanim who know how to be a posik, but at the same time an emotional understanding. And they lack it. I'm sorry, Rabbi. It is an evil. They don't feel this empathy. It's black and white, but it's not.